Harry, yes, darling. Yeah, we need to get rid of Megsy B. Yeah, yeah. Family, which, as you know, she desperately needs to keep refreshed
As
because
public attention once again turns to the British royal family, a striking contrast has emerged between two women who, for a time, shared the global spotlight. On one side, Catherine, Princess of Wales, stepping back into public life while speaking candidly about her cancer journey. On the other, Meghan Markle, resurfacing through a carefully curated social media image that has reignited debate about her post-royal identity and personal brand. Catherine made a rare but powerful appearance this week, marking World Cancer Day with a deeply personal message that resonated across the United Kingdom and beyond. In her statement, she acknowledged the emotional and physical toll of cancer not only on patients, but on families, caregivers, and loved ones who walk beside them. She described the journey as non-linear, marked by fear and exhaustion, but also by strength, compassion, and hope. The message was widely praised for its empathy and sincerity, reinforcing Catherine's reputation as a steady and respected figure during a challenging time for the monarchy. Public reaction was immediate and overwhelmingly supportive. During a recent engagement, members of the public were heard offering simple but heartfelt words of encouragement, urging her to focus on recovery. These moments, broadcast widely, underscored the deep reservoir of goodwill Catherine continues to command. Even amid broader controversies surrounding the royal family, she has remained largely untouched by criticism, with many observers noting her symbolic importance to national morale. At the same time, scrutiny has intensified around Meghan Markle following a new social media post that quickly drew media attention. The image, which partially obscured her face, was widely interpreted as a deliberate stylistic choice. Coverage in US and UK outlets soon highlighted a notable detail. The dress Meghan wore closely resembled the Roland Moore design she famously appeared in during a Royal Foundation dinner in 2018 when she was still an active member of the royal family, attending alongside Prince Harry, Prince William, and Catherine. Several commentators suggested the reference was intentional, reading it as an attempt to subtly re-establish a symbolic link to the monarchy. Analysts pointed out that Meghan's strongest public recognition continues to stem from her royal connection, rather than her independent ventures. In that context, revisiting imagery from her time as a working royal may serve to refresh that association at a moment when her lifestyle brand and media projects face mounting questions. Royal commentator Lady Colin Campbell weighed in on the discussion, arguing that the post was strategically clever. She suggested that by visually recalling her royal past, Meghan was reminding audiences of her proximity to the crown's something that still drives public interest, whether deliberate or coincidental. The image reignited debate over Meghan's ongoing efforts to balance independence with the legacy of royal status. Meanwhile, the wider royal family continues to navigate turbulent waters. King Charles, Queen Camilla, and other senior figures have faced public heckling in recent days, largely tied to renewed controversy surrounding Prince Andrew. Republican advocacy groups have intensified their campaigning, claiming growing public frustration and pushing for greater accountability. Video footage from recent engagements shows demonstrators confronting the king, raising uncomfortable questions in full public view. Yet amid this turbulence, Catherine's position appears uniquely insulated. Political commentators note that even groups traditionally critical of the monarchy have largely refrained from targeting her directly. The prevailing view is that any attempt to do so would risk significant public backlash, given her recent health struggles and her perceived sincerity. As the monarchy faces one of its most complex periods in years, the contrast between visibility and vulnerability has never been clearer. Catherine's quiet resilience has strengthened her standing, while Meghan's reemergence through carefully framed imagery has reopened long-running debates about authenticity, relevance, and legacy. And as public scrutiny intensifies, one question looms large. In a time of crisis for the institution, which approach truly resonates with the public and which one risks further division? As Catherine, Princess of Wales, gradually resumes public duties, the broader royal family finds itself under growing pressure from renewed scrutiny surrounding Prince Andrew and the lingering fallout of past associations. What was once viewed as a closed chapter has reemerged with force, pulling not only Andrew and Sarah, Duchess of York, back into the headlines, but also raising uncomfortable questions about the wider institution. In recent days, public engagements involving senior royals have been disrupted by protesters demanding accountability. King Charles has faced direct questioning in public spaces, with demonstrators accusing the monarchy of shielding Andrew from investigation. Advocacy groups campaigning for the abolition of the monarchy have seized on the moment, framing the controversy as evidence of systemic failure. While police interventions have remained measured, the optics have been difficult to ignore. Royal analysts point out that this pressure is not spontaneous. Organized groups have intensified their efforts, coordinating demonstrations and media appearances to sustain momentum. Their argument is simple. that the monarchy can no longer remain silent on issues that continue to damage public trust. Yet others argue that the situation is far more complex than protest slogans suggest, involving legal limitations, political maneuvering, and long-standing institutional protocols. What is notable, however, is who remains largely untouched by this renewed wave of criticism. Prince William and Catherine have so far emerged relatively unscathed. Observers note that William has historically taken a firmer stance than his father when it comes to distancing the monarchy from controversy, particularly in relation to Andrew. That approach, some argue, is now paying dividends. Commentators have revisited past decisions made by William and Catherine, including their choice not to include certain extended family members in high-profile events. With hindsight, those decisions are increasingly viewed as acts of foresight rather than exclusion. As one royal analyst put it, the heir to the throne appears determined to draw clear boundaries between the future of the monarchy and the scandals of the past. At the center of the current storm, however, are the York family, specifically Princess Beatrice and Princess Eugenie. Newly resurfaced emails and photographs connected to Jeffrey Epstein have reignited debate about how much responsibility, if any, the sisters bear for their parents' associations. While both women were legally adults at the time of certain encounters, many commentators urge caution before assigning blame. Reports in the British press suggest that the sisters were deeply embarrassed and distressed by the revelations, particularly by the tone and content of private correspondence involving their mother. Sources close to them describe shock rather than complicity, emphasizing that neither woman has been accused of wrongdoing. This distinction is crucial. Legal experts and royal historians alike stress that proximity to scandal does not equate to guilt. The sisters did not hold institutional power, nor were they decision-makers within the royal household. Too many, their collateral figures caught in a reputational crossfire they neither initiated nor controlled. Nevertheless, some voices in the media have argued that silence itself carries consequences. Opinion columns have suggested that public disassociation from their parents could help protect their own reputations and those of their children. Others strongly disagree, calling such demands unreasonable and ethically troubling. The expectation that children publicly denounce their parents, critics argue, reflects a broader cultural shift toward performative morality rather than genuine accountability. Lady Colin Campbell addressed this directly, stating that, while criticism of Andrew and Sarah may be justified, pressuring their daughters to publicly repudiate them crosses a moral line. She emphasized that neither parent has been convicted of criminal wrongdoing, and that demanding familial abandonment for reputational gain risks normalizing cruelty rather than justice. As this debate plays out, it further underscores the precarious position of the monarchy. Every response or lack thereof is scrutinized, every appearance interpreted. Yet amid the noise, public sentiment appears increasingly selective. Where some figures face relentless questioning, others retain a protective buffer of trust. This contrast raises an uncomfortable reality for the institution. Legitimacy is no longer evenly distributed by title alone. It is earned through conduct, consistency, and restraint. And as the royal family navigates this volatile moment, the question remains whether the lessons of the past will shape a more stable future or whether unresolved controversies will continue to define the narrative. As the monarchy confronts renewed scrutiny, the conversation is no longer confined to past scandals alone. Increasingly, attention has shifted toward the future, specifically, how different members of the royal family are positioning themselves in response to ongoing reputational challenges. Nowhere is this contrast more apparent than in the diverging public strategies of Prince William and Prince Harry. Prince William's approach has been marked by restraint and consistency. In recent public engagements, he has emphasized service, continuity, and responsibility values that align closely with the expectations placed on a future king. His appearances, alongside Catherine, Princess of Wales, have reinforced a sense of stability at a time when the institution faces mounting pressure. Royal watchers note that this steady presence has helped insulate the couple from the turbulence affecting other parts of the family. Behind the scenes, sources suggest William has been particularly focused on safeguarding the long-term credibility of the monarchy. His past decisions to maintain distance from controversial figures and to limit exposure to unnecessary risk are increasingly being interpreted as strategic rather than reactive. In the current climate, those choices appear to have strengthened his standing with both the public and political stakeholders. In contrast, Prince Harry's post-royal trajectory continues to generate debate. While he and Meghan Markle have positioned themselves as independent public figures, their relationship with the monarchy remains a central reference point in nearly every discussion about their work. Media analysts observe that even years after stepping back from royal duties, public interest in the Sussexes is still largely driven by their royal connection rather than their standalone projects. Harry's recent public speaking engagements have drawn particular attention. He has appeared at conferences focused on themes such as digital ethics, mental health, and personal resilience. Supporters argue that his lived experience within the royal system gives him a unique perspective. Critics, however, question whether his outspoken criticism of the institution undermines the credibility of his message, especially when those critiques continue to fuel media narratives he has publicly condemned. Financial considerations have also entered the conversation. Early after their royal exit, the Sussexes secured several high-profile deals across publishing, streaming, and speaking platforms. While some projects achieved significant visibility, others have faced delays or mixed reception. Industry observers suggest this reflects a broader reality. Sustaining attention without the structure and symbolism of royal life is more challenging than initially anticipated. Meanwhile, Meghan Markle's public re-emergence through selective appearances and curated imagery has reignited questions about her long-term strategy. Commentators note that moments referencing her time as a working royal tend to generate far more engagement than announcements related solely to her business ventures. This dynamic has led some analysts to conclude that her royal identity remains her most powerful and, perhaps unavoidable, asset. Public perception, however, remains deeply divided. In the United States, Meghan and Harry continue to enjoy pockets of strong support, particularly among audiences sympathetic to their criticisms of media intrusion and institutional tradition. In the United Kingdom, sentiment is more complex. Polling and commentary suggests lingering skepticism, driven by a sense that personal grievances have been repeatedly aired in ways that weaken public trust. What unites both audiences is a growing fatigue with constant controversy. Cultural analysts argue that the public appetite for high-conflict narratives has diminished, particularly when those narratives appear cyclical rather than constructive. In this environment, figures who project calm and continuity rather than confrontation tend to benefit. This shift may explain why Catherine's return to public life has resonated so strongly. Her message on World Cancer Day was not framed as a statement of grievance or defiance, but as an expression of shared humanity. In an era of relentless commentary, that tone stands out. As the royal family moves forward, the contrast between these approaches is becoming increasingly pronounced. One path emphasizes discretion, duty, and institutional stability. The other leans toward visibility, personal narrative, and independence from tradition. Whether one strategy will ultimately prove more sustainable remains an open question, but as public scrutiny intensifies, it is clear that the monarchy and those who have stepped away from it are being judged not only by what they say, but by how they choose to say it. And in a media landscape that rewards consistency over spectacle, the balance between relevance and restraint may determine who shapes the next chapter of this ongoing story. As this chapter unfolds, the royal family stands at a crossroads, shaped not only by past controversy, but by the choices being made now. The events of recent weeks have reinforced a central truth about modern monarchy. Survival depends less on tradition alone, and more on credibility, restraint, and public trust. For King Charles, the challenge has been navigating accountability while preserving institutional stability. Public confrontations during engagements have highlighted frustration among certain groups, yet they have also revealed the limits of protest-driven narratives. While campaigners argue that silence implies complicity, constitutional experts emphasize that the monarch's role is constrained, designed to endure political storms rather than react to each one. Whether that model remains viable in today's media environment is a question increasingly being asked. Prince William, meanwhile, appears to be quietly preparing for the future. His consistent distancing from controversy, combined with a focus on service and continuity, has strengthened his public standing. Alongside Catherine, Princess of Wales, he represents a version of monarchy rooted in duty rather than debate. Their recent appearances, together measured, purposeful, and restrained, have reinforced a sense of reassurance at a time when the institution needs it most. Catherine's return to public life, following her cancer treatment, has further underscored this contrast. Her message of resilience and empathy resonated precisely because it avoided spectacle. In a landscape saturated with opinion and outrage, her approach has reminded audiences of the quiet power of sincerity. For many, she has become a symbol of stability, someone who reflects the human cost of adversity without turning it into a performance. By comparison, the Sussexes' post-royal journey continues to provoke mixed reactions. Meghan Markle and Prince Harry remain highly visible, yet that visibility has not always translated into broader public confidence. Analysts suggest that without a clear shift in tone, their narrative risks becoming defined by repetition rather than evolution. Independence from the monarchy brought freedom, but also removed the framework that once lent weight and clarity to their roles. What emerges from this moment is a broader lesson about leadership in the public eye. Trust is cumulative. It is built slowly through consistency and restraint, and lost quickly through overexposure and conflict. In that sense, the monarchy's future may hinge less on managing scandals than on demonstrating an ability to learn from them. As Britain and the world watch closely, the contrast between approaches has never been clearer. One path seeks longevity through service, patience, and institutional responsibility. The other pursues relevance through visibility, narrative control, and personal expression. History will ultimately decide which strategy endures. But in the present moment, public sentiment appears to favor calm over confrontation and continuity over spectacle. For a monarchy under pressure, that distinction may prove decisive.